Welcome to your Truman VA Healthy Teaching Kitchen. Today we're going to be doing a Thanksgiving sheet pan dinner. So this will be for 1 or 2 people. So if you're having a little bit smaller gathering this year, this can be a great option for you. I'm Lindsay Kelling. I do our Healthy Teaching Kitchen classes here. So we're going to put everything on one pan. And this will go into the oven depending on how big your turkey breast is for anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour or an hour and a half. So we'll talk about some of the adjustments we'll need to make depending on the size of your turkey. But we're going to start with a traditional dressing. And I say dressing rather than stuffing because we're not actually putting it in the turkey. But we're going to be using some whole wheat bread that's just been dried out. You can use any bread you have at home if you just want to let it sit out for about 4 to 5 days because you want it really nice and dried. If you're someone who normally uses a cornbread stuffing or dressing, you can make that as well for this recipe, but we're going to be using bread today. So to this, we have went ahead and sauteed up some onion and some celery and just a little bit of butter. So we have about 2 tablespoons of butter to half of a diced onion and half of a cup of celery. So we've just cooked that for about 3 to 5 minutes till it's nice and soft. Okay, and we're going to add that to our half of a loaf of bread into our pan. Now on our celery that we use, if you're making a veggie tray, this is a great opportunity to use the leaves of the celery that we might otherwise discard, and this nice little tender insides of the celery that we might not always be using for those trays. So another good use for those. All right, so we have those in our bowl. Then we're going to add some sage. And depending on how strong your sage is or how much sage you like, you're going to use anywhere from half of one of these little canisters, which is about 3.5 teaspoons to 3/4 or 4 to 5 teaspoons, kind of depending on how much sage you like. I like a little more sage in mine, and I went ahead and measured this out to half of the container. So we're going to add that in there. And then to add the juice side of it, we're going to be using some chicken stock. You can use chicken stock, chicken broth. If you want to boil some chicken in water and shred the chicken and put in here, it adds a lot more flavor to it as well. And you're going to need anywhere between 2 and 4 cups of chicken broth. And the reason that variation is because we want to make sure we get it nice and juicy so it doesn't dry out when it's cooking. And if your bread is really, really dry, it's probably going to need a little bit more broth. But if you didn't have it able to sit out quite as long, you might not need as much. Okay? So we're going to stir this, and we just want to get all of the bread nice and soaked. And this bread has been dried out, and it's nice and really, really dry. So I'm probably going to let this set just for a couple of minutes to let the juice really get absorbed into that bread. Because at the end of the day, we don't want dry dressing. So we're going to squish that around. I'm going to add just a little bit more. You want it to be very moist, just short of being soupy. Okay, that'll keep it nice and moist when it comes out of your oven. And we're going to add just a little bit of pepper to this. And if you decide not to do a shredded chicken in this, maybe you didn't boil your chicken or you didn't want to do that step, you can add a little bit of a chicken bouillon, and this is a no salt added variety, and we'll add just a little more flavor to it. It gives it that umami flavor, that savory that we really like at Thanksgiving. So we're just going to sprinkle a little bit in there. It just comes in a little package. You won't use very much, maybe 1/4 of the package or about half of a teaspoon. All right, and we're gonna mix that, oh, lost a little. Mix that up. And I'm gonna set this to the side and let it finish kind of absorbing some of that broth that's still kind of at the bottom. And then we're going to make some of the other parts. But I've already got my pan set out. It's got the foil on it. You can see we've kind of got it separated into 2 halves. So one side's going to have our dressing and our turkey, and the other side's going to have our sweet potato and our green beans. Okay. So we're going to do our sweet potato recipe. So all I've done is I've thinly sliced a peeled sweet potato. And normally for Thanksgiving, we tend to add a lot of brown sugar and marshmallows to our sweet potatoes. So this one's going to be a little bit more savory. It's actually a smoky roasted sweet potato. So to this one, we're going to be adding just a little bit of olive oil. We're going to add just a little bit of brown sugar to kind of tone down the spiciness of it a little bit and mellow it. But if you wanted to use a Splenda brown sugar, you absolutely could as well. So we're just going to drizzle some of that olive oil on top of our potatoes. We just want to get them nice and kind of covered so that the seasonings stick really well to them. And we're getting lots of good fiber and color in this. So we're going to add about a tablespoon of brown sugar, and we'll mix that up here in a minute, a teaspoon of our smoked paprika, about 1/8 of a teaspoon of garlic powder, and then we're going to add just a dash of cayenne pepper. Now, if you're someone who really likes spicy, you can definitely increase this. If you don't like as much spice, you can cut that back or eliminate it altogether. And then we're just going to put a little bit of pepper on it as well. And we're just going to mix these up. If you have kids, this is kind of a fun one that they can help to kind of get their fingers in there and squish everything around. Food safety, always make sure they wash their hands first. So we're going to get these nice and covered. And once you've got everything kind of evenly coated, we're going to put this on 1/4 of our sheet pan. All right, one ran away. And kind of spread them out so they kind of bake pretty evenly. All right. So another traditional one we tend to have at Thanksgiving is a green bean casserole. It has a lot of extra cream of mushroom soup in it, which can have a lot of extra salt. So we're going to do a little bit different variety and just do more of a kind of sauteed green bean style, where we're just going to, again, use just a little bit of olive oil on top of this, not a lot, just enough to get some of our minced garlic to stick really well to this. And we're going to use about 2 to 3 cloves of garlic. If you like more garlic, add more in. If you don't want to use minced garlic, you can definitely use a powdered garlic instead. And then again, just a little bit of pepper. And we're going to mix this around. And we just want to get that garlic nice and evenly over our green beans. And these green beans are fresh. They've already had the stems removed on each end. They've already been washed. If you don't want to use a fresh green bean, you can use a canned green bean for this recipe. I would encourage you, though, that if you choose a canned version for this, that you go ahead and drain the juice, and then don't add this portion onto your pan until about the last 15 minutes of it baking, okay? All right, so we got our sides on there. We're going to move back to our dressing. See, it's kind of absorbed some of that extra juice that was in it and has a nice consistency. So you can see it's nice and squishy. And we're going to add this to the other half of our pan. And we're going to spread it out. All right. And then the last part of our Thanksgiving meal for this recipe is going to be the turkey. And the turkey, however big of a turkey breast you decide to use, is really going to determine how long you're baking for some of the other items on your tray. So today we're going to be using a turkey breast tenderloin. Now, if you get a full turkey breast, you're going to want to make sure you give yourself plenty of time that if it's frozen, then it can thaw. You're going to need about 24 hours for every 5 pounds 4 to 5 pounds of turkey. So if you have a 5-pound turkey, you're going to need at least 1 day in your refrigerator for it to fully thaw. So if you're going to go out and buy a 20-pound turkey, you don't expect it to be thawed in 1 day. You've got a lot of food safety there. So we're just going to be using a turkey tenderloin today. It's about 2 pounds. So for every 2 pounds, you need about 20 minutes of cooking time. Okay, so even with your turkeys, keep that in mind. So this one's about 2 pounds. I'm sorry, for every 1 pound, you're going to need about 20 minutes. So this one's going to take about 40 minutes total to cook. So we're going to go ahead and put this one onto our tray. And for food safety, I'm just going to use some tongs so I don't touch it. All right, so we're going to set that right in the middle, and then we're going to do a little bit of a seasoning to go on top. So I have just 2 tablespoons of an unsalted butter, and we're going to add some sage, about 1 teaspoon. We're going to do about 2 cloves of minced garlic. And we're going to do about 1 teaspoon of minced thyme, or thyme. Okay. And then we're just going to stir this together, get it nice and mixed, and this is going to be our seasoning to go on top of our turkey. Now, if you have a full turkey breast for this recipe and it's bigger than 2 pounds, I would encourage you to either use a separate pan for that one, or do 2 pans where you have your dressing and your turkey in one and your sides in the other, as they won't need to cook quite as long. Okay. So we're going to put this on top, kind of spread it around. And then we're going to bake this at 350, and this is a 2-pound turkey tenderloin, so it's going to take about 30 to 40 minutes. We want to make sure in our oven that the internal temperature of our turkey breast reaches at least 155 degrees. And that is because when we take it out, we want our turkey to be able to rest for about 15 minutes. So when this comes out, we're going to put foil over top of it and let it sit on the counter for about 15 minutes. That allows the juices to reabsorb into that meat. It also gives your turkey time to finish cooking. So we really want that final internal temperature before you serve it to reach 165 degrees. And by sitting out for that 15 minutes, by the time it gets done cooking on your counter for that time, should be right around that 165 degrees. So we're going to set that in our oven. We do have one that we've already cooked today to show you kind of what it will look like. So when it's all done, you'll see that the potatoes are nice and browned. Your green beans have a nice browned edge to them. Your dressing has a nice browning to it as well, but not dried out. And your chicken or your turkey, is nice and kind of, the topping is all over and kind of baked onto it. Okay. I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving. Please check back with us more for recipes to come. Thank you.